My name's Colin Hines, and I've been working in the environment movement for a number of decades. I'd like to talk about two things that a number of us have been doing. One is a sort of short-term thing called the Green New Deal in Britain, and the second is a longer-term thing, which basically addresses a lot of the problems we've heard about earlier today, which is basically how we can counter the power of big corporations and the big money. For me, the route to do that is for people to see their activities through a prism of the need to protect and rebuild local economies all over the world by a process I call Progressive Protectionism. Starting with the Green New Deal. A group of us have been working in the environment and in economics for some decades, realized in 2007 that the credit crunch was coming big. And the history of the environment movement is that when the economy is doing well, we do okay. When the economy tanks, we tank. And our topics tank. So we tried to, having a very clear idea that the credit crunch was coming and why, we tried to realize that the on-your-face political crisis would be how to cope with the massive economic slowdown and how to provide jobs. So basically, I had a look at what Roosevelt did with the New Deal and then sort of greened it and came up with the term Green New Deal. And we published a report in July 2008, just before the world's economy crumbled, basically saying that you need a Green New Deal and saying that what we would need to do to start with is to put large amounts of money, as Roosevelt did, but not just state money, but also private money, into job-generating projects, not the dams and massive highways of old, but green projects. And to start with, we started with a labour-intensive energy efficiency program. Basically, our demand was that Britain trains a carbon army to crawl over every building and make it energy tight with the maximum use of renewables. Now, the advantage of this is, of course, as you know, energy efficiency saves money, so there's a return on investing in it. But it's also very labour intensive across a wide range of skills, from draft stripping to economics. And perhaps most importantly, it's jobs where people live. It is in towns and in cities where you get the majority of this work. And so we've been working with the biggest local authority in Europe, which is Birmingham, in the middle of Britain. And they are now introducing a £100 million, 15,000 house energy efficiency project. But the plan is by the end of the decade to have that up to around £1.5 billion. So we're talking serious money. And the real reason we want to do that is obviously that means more jobs, lower carbon, etc. But also we want to get the thing big enough to bring in the pension funds, because pension funds are an incredibly important source of money. They also require stable long-term money, and that's what can be got out of things like energy efficiency. The next stage would be recycling to minimize raw material use, etc. And so we calculated, and in discussions with pension funds, that once we get a pot of about 300 million in projects, then the pension funds will come in. The pension funds have £1 trillion, so it can really be quite significant. And so that kind of thing that's starting in Birmingham is now spreading to other local authorities, and it looked very good. In 2008, 2009, we had a Keynesian year in the sun. Everybody was talking about the Green New Deal. The United Nations Environment Programme was talking about it. Our ghastly Prime Minister, not as ghastly as the present one, Gordon Brown, was talking about it. So it seemed wonderful. But of course then, it was brought to a juddering halt by the whole deficit and austerity fight back by the right wing, which you've heard about earlier. And so now, it's very, very difficult, because everywhere you look, the basic argument is you've got to save money. So the short-term stuff, the Green New Deal stuff, is carrying on and is developing even in times of austerity. And it will strengthen, because in Britain today, it was announced that we're in our first double-dip recession since the 1970s. And so the the economy is juddering. And that means these austerity lunatics are facing a real problem, because we're moving not from jitters about deficits, we're moving to terror about deflation. And deflation means a massive slowdown in jobs, slowdown in spending, slowdown in industrial output, reduction in things to invest in. It ain't pretty. And even idiots like the IMF and the ratings agencies, even these pathetic creatures, are realizing that the whole deficit thing is crumbling into deflation. And they're beginning to say, oh, not so much austerity, not so fast. We're not having demand. What should we do? What should we do? Okay, so that's the short-term thing. The medium-term thing is, in any event like this, you get lots of very, very worthy one-off campaigns coming together talking about what they're doing. The basic concept is, though, what overarching set of policies will enable all these different disparate campaigns to achieve their end goal? And remember, the underlying problem for the things we've heard about today and a whole range of other campaigns is the power of big finance and the power of big transnational companies. The only thing these bastards fear is protectionism. Now, of course, to use the word protectionism is the equivalent of an economic child molesting. It's just so ghastly, so appalling, so unreasonable, so absolutely terrible that virtually nobody talks about it. But if you think about it, the only way to block the power of transnational companies and international finance is for the state to take back control of the economy. And so what the progressive protectionism thing says, first of all, reject the open market. Don't buy this bullshit. You can have a kinder, gentler, greener open market and it'll be very efficient and lovely. The open market's the problem. Do not worship at the altar of international competitiveness. It is the curse of our era, because it means that if you internalize that idea, we had a ghastly prime minister that haunts the world since she was here, Margaret Thatcher, and she left the world 4 letters which are so corrosive. They were Tina. There is no alternative. That's been absorbed into the DNA of politicians everywhere, that there's no alternative to international competitiveness, there's no alternative to the open markets. There is, and that is a reaction to the destruction that's causing now in very, very rapid time. And so if you start to say, okay, we're not going to be internationally competitive, we're not going to have ever more open markets, we are going to protect and rebuild our local and national and groupings of nation states, then we've got a chance. I tell you why transnational companies and big business hate the word protectionism more than anything else, because it takes the power of the threat of relocation away from them. If any government has the impudence to try and tax adequately, introduce good labour or environmental laws, immediately they are crushed by the threat of, or the actuality of, relocating. And so they say, okay, sorry, no, we won't introduce, please stay. Sometimes they do, if you slash your labour, sometimes they just move. So their bluff's got to be called. The only way you can do that is to reintroduce protective barriers and tell big business and big money, you have to site here to sell here, and your money has to stay here to prosper here. Suddenly, their power dissolves, and the power of communities begins to emerge, and the power of government emerges. And this concept of having as an end goal of your economic activity the rediversification of your national economy is one that is deeply democratic. It involves daily democracy. It's complex. It's like a natural web. To do that, to have a whole range of goods and services and businesses done locally, requires real activity and involvement of communities. So it's very democratic. Then it enables you to tax things. You can tax the very rich, which is very gratifying, but also you can tax terrible things like junk food, too much alcohol, tobacco, etc., to change people's behaviour, because the only way people change their behaviour is not education, it's not advertising, it's money. If you have to pay through the nose for a cigarette, I nearly said fag, sorry Americans, then you start to cut down. So basically, it's very crucial that the community groups worried about austerity, the trade unions worried about relocation of jobs, all the range of things that are a problem come together and consider whether this program of progressive protectionism, go onto the website, progressiveprotectionism.com, is actually something you could benefit from, actually seeing as the end goal that would achieve your campaign. Because the final word, every campaign in the world wants two things: more money for its pet topic and better regulation. And the only way you're going to get both of those things is to take back control of the economy. So progressive protectionism, the Green New Deal, going to be great. Thank you.